Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about the Trump meme coin and other topics. And
Yes.
Friday, January 24, 2025.
And are you going to talk Melodia's e-coin too?
Well, it
Well,
applies, well, not Melania, let's mention it, but I mean, the Trump meme coin, she actually, I'm very interested in this. I've been teaching cryptography and cryptocurrency for a while, although not usually the financial side, although that's part of it. The technical
yeah.
side of cryptocurrency is actually very interesting. Um, the math and cryptography involved is quite interesting. But anyway, the meme coin is mainly a financial instrument. And so the cryptocurrency people, like the libertarians, backed Trump because Trump promised them that he was going to do things. And in fact, apparently, I think I heard today he really is going to take like some of the US Treasury and put it in Bitcoin. So that's the kind of thing that cryptocurrency people love because they're trying to have sensible cryptocurrency regulation so people will take it seriously and treat it like a real investment, like a security, and then the serious investors can start investing in crypto. So they want to get away from this clownish, cartoonish garbage where crypto is all full of ridiculous scams and jokes and people getting ripped off right and left and rug pulls. And then, so they were horrified when Trump put out a meme coin because meme coins are the dark side of crypto. They're a currency with nothing special about it. It doesn't have any new technical advantages, doesn't have any new cryptography. It's just a way to make a fad like a pet rock. If ever anything is popped, like the Hawk Chua coin is the perfect example. I don't this young woman made a TikTok video or something where she's talking about sex and says you should do Hawk Chua or something. And this became like a joke that everybody repeated. So she made a meme coin called Hawk and sold it. Capitalization rapidly went up to I think $500,000 or something. Yeah, it went up to 500 million. And so then within a few days, she sold all her coins. The price plummeted. She only got 3 million. And that's what happens. That's called a rug pull, where you announce it, people put their money in it, then you sell your stake, which causes the price to collapse, and you get a tiny fraction out, like 1% of the theoretical evaluation. So this is a big thing about crypto, is that they'll say this thing has $100 million market capitalization, which is what happens if you take the current number of coins and multiply by the current price, but you can't get $100 million. As soon as you start selling, the price plummets. So the real value is not easy to figure out. If you try to get the value out right away, it would be like less than 1% of the market cap. If you were to trickle out your sales over a couple of years, you might get a lot more. Anyway, so they got horrified that Trump did this, which they regard as like sort of violating all the norms and being rude and offensive. And I don't know what they expected out of Trump. That's Trump's whole thing. He'll join any group like the presidency, and then he'll do all the stuff you're not supposed to do as a president. So he joined the crypto community and now did everything you're not supposed to do in cryptocurrency. But the point is, the Trump market had a hold at $10. It went up to a market cap of $10 billion or more. But and if Trump was to perform a rug pull and just sell all of it right now just to get cash, it would crash and it would make him look horrible. Like everybody hates the Hawk Tuah girl now for doing this. And I think Trump is not that stupid. I think I'm not even sure this is a bad move. If you just don't do the rug pull, if you just leave your money in there, then you appear to be richer. Your value on paper is higher, and Trump has done this for years. He wants to appear rich. He'll call the financial newspapers, financial magazines, and pretend to be a press agent to try to convince them he's rich. Just appearing rich is a big part of his brand. And now he appears to be like 10 times richer than he ever was. Now he has many billions of dollars in this meme coin. So I think he'll just leave the money in there. So his paper value goes up. If he doesn't sell his stake, then he won't turn it into real money he can spend, but it will make him appear
Yeah.
more rich and powerful and successful, and he can benefit from that indirectly. And then the investors won't really lose their money. I mean, a bunch of people made money already, well, I mean, like any pyramid scheme, the early investors make money. Barstool Sports, Trump supporters, they bought the Trump coin immediately. They bought $500,000, and when it rose to 1 million, they sold it and took the 500,000 profit. If you sell on the upswing, you actually make money. It went from 10 up to 80, then it fell to 40, and people freak out and say that's a rug pull, but that's not a rug pull. A rug pull is like Hawk Chua, where it goes up to like 10 and then it goes down to 1 penny. Um, so anyway, some people are madder than hell about this. The only thing I see wrong with it, which is a serious problem, is that there are no regulations at all covering this. And anybody can just bribe Trump now. They can just buy Trump coins, but they could already buy his $100,000 watches. I mean, that's why the old tradition I like, where the president is not allowed to do financial business, money making business while being a president, because then it could be bribed. And Trump has blown that to hell. I mean, there are so
Yeah.
many ways to bribe him, and it's so obvious that everybody is bribing him. Like at his inauguration, it's the billionaires at his table, and his own cabinet is like in the back somewhere. Clearly, the entire point of the presidency is for him to make money from rich people, and the part where you actually run the country is like a small detail to him. And that's why he does stuff like they said he wanted. They all said he's not going to just pardon all the January 6 rioters. They're going to examine on a case-to-case basis. So the reports are coming out. They tried to do that, and Trump said, "Well, I had to read all this paper. This is a lot of work. Oh, to hell with it. Just pardon them all. It's too much bother to actually like review the cases."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing. The actual governing of the country, he just does by offhanded sort of reflex gestures. Oh, kick out all the immigrants, raise all the tariffs, just do the simplest things so I don't have to bother with it anymore. And let me get back to like selling, cans of soup or something to make money.
So Sam, the Hawk Tuah girl, the
Yeah,
woman, her name's Dara something, or
I forget.
yeah,
He just made a TikTok that went viral.
yeah. She made, and she's doing the tutorials, right, on like calculus.
No, that's not her. The Hawk Tuah
That
girl, this is her only claim to fame, is she made one TikTok that made her famous. The
ah,
other woman's actually, a porn star, professional with a following on OnlyFans and everything. So she has
yeah, but she's doing um
also science.
tutorials.
Yeah, yeah. She's a porn star and an educator, and she's
Yeah,
been for a
yeah.
while and she has a following. The Hawk Tuah girl is like a one hit wonder. She made one
Ah, I see.
made one, and that's why her meme coin reflects anybody else that has one moment of fame and then they fall off because they have nothing else. Whereas Trump, I think, is the world's expert at maintaining fame. Like I mean, I heard Scott Galloway say this, and he's right. Trump is most amazing character in the world. I mean, he actually lost the election and did not fade away into insignificance. He knows how to maintain interest in the public. He's the world's greatest reality TV star. He knows how to keep the cameras focused on him and recover from any disaster.
I see.
He's
I
the
see.
world's genius in public relations, I'd say, because he manages to stay popular to some extent and successful and rich, even through disasters that would sink anybody else.
I see. I see.
Yeah. So he's the opposite of the Hawk Tuah girl. Trump is totally not a one-hit wonder. He has an endless chain of more and more ways to keep his base excited. Anyway,
Got it. Got it. Okay.
and so
So did
I think his meme coin will stay up there because he'll stay popular in
yeah.
and everything like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is essentially, Tesla is essentially a meme stock. It trades at easily 10 times what the fundamentals would justify because everybody just believes that Elon Musk is the greatest guy in the world, the biggest genius, and that just being in his club is worth paying a bunch of money for because he's surely going to get to Mars or make the world's greatest AI or do something awesome. And by the way, it appears to be true. Now he doubled his entire wealth just over a few months just by getting right next to Donald Trump. So,
Yeah. I mean, it sure is interesting. And, Sam, I talked about this before. There was the hatred of Bill Gates for probably the past 30 years, the pie in the face. If you remember that, somebody
yeah,
threw a
yeah.
pie in Gates's face.
Why did people hate him? I never thought of him as that bad. He's just a CEO. He makes a lot of money. Windows
Yeah,
crunch.
I mean,
Man.
right? He's no different than Trump or anybody else that's a capitalist.
Well, I don't think he
And
told lies all the time like Trump. And I don't think he was actually mean and rotten to people as much as Trump. But it may be.
there's a lot of it's business.
Yeah.
I guess, are you mean and rotten if you're in business?
Well, some people are more beer and rotten than others, but
Yeah.
Trump goes out of his way to like insult people and send a mob of people to harass them and stuff. Like those two election workers in Georgia, where they actually had their whole town hated them, accused them falsely of rigging an election. I think Trump brings a level of nastiness to capitalism that wasn't there when Bill Gates did it. When Bill Gates did it, it was just about making money.
Yeah, Bill Gates was all about making money. That's what the focus was on.
Sure.
Um, and I would argue that's what Elon's doing.
Well, this Nazi thing, for example. No, Elon is
Yeah.
mentally disturbed and wants to be, in fact, Twitter. He didn't make money directly out of Twitter. No, I think Elon, like Trump, the biggest motivation is to be a troll. He wants to like get all the
Yeah,
cameras to
yeah,
focus
yeah,
on him by
yeah.
doing something outrageous. Like apparently, I heard this morning on Pivot, he followed up that Nazi salute with a whole bunch of more unfunny Nazi jokes about comparing him to all these Nazi figures. So he's really his latest thing is to be a public Nazi and be really obvious about it in order to get attention. And this is like Trump. This is like Jackass, where you bite the head off a chicken.
Yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah,
something
yeah.
just to horrify people, but the cameras are on you and you regard that as success, which it is to an extent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
But
I would agree.
so
Yeah,
it's
I
big
was
business.
if you look at the Nazi salute that
Yeah.
that Elon gave,
Yeah.
I think it could be argued that you could interpret that two ways. One was it was accidental because he does hit his heart or chest, and then he puts his arm up. Whereas the Nazi salute is you don't do that; the arm goes straight up. That hitting the chest, wasn't that from Star Trek? An
Well,
episode in
it's the
there?
Klingon salute in Star Trek, but it came from the Romans, and
Yeah,
it was a fascist thing. I mean, it's anyway. It's he clearly meant it as a Nazi gesture. He is a Nazi. He supports the AFD in Germany. He's
right, right,
absolutely just straight up a Nazi, and he's just which the Republicans been doing for about 15 years. They lift their mask and reveal that they're Nazi. Like a couple of years ago, um, the conservative CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, had a meeting and they had a stage in the shape of an Odal rune, which is the second most famous Nazi symbol. They weren't quite
right.
bold enough to make it a swastika. They made it the second Nazi symbol, but they made the whole shape of the stage into a giant Nazi symbol. So, I mean, the Republican Party is very much in bed with the Nazis now and has been for about 12 years. And they frequently lift the mask a little to reveal it. Like Elon Musk has also made a lot of 1488 jokes, and that's another white supremacist slogan. They have
Yeah,
these dog whistles to inform we're really the Nazi party, but we have a very thin pretense of not being it, so we can be more successful. Anyway,
yeah,
so
yeah.
then Trump's been at it. He did direct all his federal health agencies to have no communications, so they don't even have scientific communications anymore. And this is the kind of stuff I was most worried about with Trump. He wants to take over all the agencies and pervert all the science and force all the scientific communications to go through like a political orthodoxy test first. So all the health agency employees can have no documents or communications go out at all until they can have them all checked for political approval. Regulations, guidelines, notices, social media, websites, and press releases all have to be reviewed and approved by a presidential appointee before you can issue them. Because remember, when Trump was in last time, he tried to say, oh, COVID is not a problem. You don't need to worry about it. We don't need to develop a vaccine or anything at first. For months, he tried to say, we'll just ignore it. And then he tried to just keep the numbers low by changing the way they were reported so you wouldn't
Right.
make the numbers. I mean, he doesn't seem to know the difference between faking something and actually doing it. And so, anyway, that's what I was afraid of most is this USSR type political orthodoxy overriding the truth. And we're headed that way.
We'll see, right, Sam? We'll
I think
see.
I think we can already see. I think his executive orders make it very clear that's exactly what we're going to have. And so they let out the Dread Pirate Roberts, which is, I think, pretty terrible. I mean, this guy is basically like the head of a cartel. I mean, he ran the Silk Road that sold an incredible amount of guns, murder for hire, drugs, prostitution, and then he personally contracted 5 murders. And so he got 2 life sentences, and Trump just let him out now because the libertarians wanted him out. He's totally free now. He promised the libertarians he would let him out. He's living up to his promises. But the libertarians, of course, would like to let him out because they think drugs should be legal. And I have some sympathy with that. But even libertarians don't generally think murder should be legal. But anyway,
Yeah, interesting. Huh.
I know. I mean, I would. Anyway, it's sort of horrible. That's what he's done. And the judges are, of course, mad. One of the judges that convicted him said Ulbricht profited from every sale on Silk Road. He facilitated the act of each drug dealer and drug organization that used it, and he attempted to commission at least 5 murders to protect his criminal enterprise. I mean, if you're going to let him out, you should just empty all the prisons entirely. I mean, he's like the head of a cartel that committed 5 murders and sold, unthinkable amounts of drugs and guns. Why is anybody in jail if it's okay to do that?
Yep, yep. I would agree.
I think we should, I don't know why they have presidential pardon power at all. Why should the president be able to pardon people? What is the point of that?
So it's a good question. You'd have to ask a lawyer or a constitutional historian.
Yeah, I mean, we already have a court system and we have a presumption of innocence and we have defense and juries and everything and appeals. Why isn't that good enough? Why does the president get to come in and overrule all that?
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'll just, the last one.
I'm sure there is a reason and a logical reason that makes sense.
Well, in my lifetime, I don't think I've seen the pardon power used for hardly any good reason at all. There's a couple of cases, but remember, Bill Clinton just sold pardons for money at the end of his term. Uh, they often do
And
that.
Sam, that might be it.
Well, it's their retirement package.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, anyway, the last one I had in my politics section is a whole bunch of subreddits are now banning all links to X, which I certainly would like. I don't like to see Twitter at all. I'm always trying to open it in a private window if I have to and avoid it. And a
yes,
bunch because Elon is now out as a Nazi, many groups are saying we don't want to have anything to do with this. Let's not link to X anymore. All the advertisers have fled. He's burned down X by being an open Nazi. But to be fair, what
yeah,
he's done is he's joined the winning team. I mean, the Nazis are in the ascendance in America. I think now that Trump let all the Proud Boys out of jail, those are the Hitler Youth, the brown shirts. So I
yeah.
think, you know, betting on the Nazi Party in America might be a winning bet for at least the next 4 years.
Oh,
But
yeah,
those of us that don't want to be Nazis really need to distance ourselves from that.
yeah. Understood.
Yeah. Anyway,
Understood.
what have you got?
So, since you've been talking a little bit about this, let me start off with a real short one. It's been reported RFK Jr.,
Uh,
right,
yeah.
contracted COVID.
Oh, well, that would make sense. And what do you do? Cover it up or take that oxychloroquine or something?
I, we don't know, or at least
Well,
who.
everybody pretty much got COVID. I got COVID a bunch of times. You figure he would. He probably refused to take the vaccine, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. So I did not. I've not
oh well,
had COVID.
good for you. Very few people escaped COVID. It's pretty
Yeah,
contagious. Boy, I've had it like 4 times,
I have not, and I've tested for it every time I've been sick.
and you
So
took the vac.
far, no.
You got the vaccine, right?
I got 2 doses of the vaccine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good, good. Well,
yeah,
I recommend not getting it. Makes you feel bad. Sometimes it really does permanent harm. You don't want to get it.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, then let's see. I don't know if you've been following the TikTok saga.
No,
So
read a little bit about it. Yeah.
yeah, so here, this is kind of interesting story. So TikTok buyers include Mr. Beast. Do you know who that is?
Some YouTube personality. I don't know anything about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's really popular as far as I know with the younger crowd,
Yeah.
middle school, high school kids. I don't know beyond that. I've never seen his videos. I wouldn't know what he looks like, but he's made a lot of money off of his videos. So Mr. Beast has the money. Elon's
Of course.
also in there. But these two are kind of interesting. Larry Ellison and from Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary.
Well, if you're a billionaire and you don't own a media platform, you're like not cool anymore. So,
Yeah. So, interesting list of suitors, I
yeah,
would
but I don't
say.
think TikTok is going to sell. I think the Chinese government has made it
No.
clear that America is really only like 10, 15 or 20% of their market, and they'd rather just write that market off than sell.
Yeah. Oh, and sell, and I would add to that sell out because it's got to be owned by the Chinese government.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I think
Or controlled. Yeah.
the main thing I don't think about TikTok is just like so many things, Biden's in, incredible stupidity handed a victory to Trump by sort of trying to ban it. Then Trump can
Yeah.
say, "I saved it." And this is the thing. Democrats tend to be clumsy, and Trump is in there to pick up the ball you dropped and be a hero.
Yeah. But let's be clear on this. Let's kind of go back because
Oh, Trump
it,
started it. Yeah,
well, yeah, but it was to be banned,
right.
right? And it was the day before the inauguration.
Yeah,
And so TikTok did go dark.
Yeah.
But then they revived themselves, and Trump has given them 90 days.
Yeah, 75 days, I think, something like that. That's right.
Yes.
And also by an order that doesn't really have any legal force. So I saw some articles that said they're still not back in the Apple and Google App Store because technically they're ordered by law not to be in there right now because Trump's executive order doesn't really erase that.
I see. But if you have the app, you can use it.
Right. But then they blocked the cloud service just sort of as a stunt to protest being blocked. And then they lifted it when Trump said, I'm going to let you in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
they sort of cooperated with giving Trump a political victory, a PR victory,
Right. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
by the way, is the smart way to succeed as a
Right.
company, is to help
Yeah.
Trump.
That's the way business is done, right?
Well, that's one way. I mean, the alternative
Yeah. One
is to
way.
be
Yeah.
like the Washington Post and try to like be the rebel protesting the government, but that's, not the way to make the most money usually in the short run. In the long run, that might be the best move. It's all depending, do you think Trump is the real future of America or do you think he's an aberration that we will correct?
Yeah. We will see, won't we, Sam?
We
We will see.
hopefully we won't catch COVID or whatever, and we'll get to live through this glorious, interesting period of history where America faces yet another attempt to turn towards fascism, and we either do that or we don't.
Yeah. So let me, I got another Elon story here, kind of unrelated, but it's interesting how the hatred of the Tesla cars and people are protesting.
Yeah,
And I would argue, what a, sort of what a dichotomy that is, because you want to save the planet by getting an EV,
yeah,
right? You want to use you want to use the internet, and if you need wireless, right, or military, both use Starlink, which
yep,
is Elon.
yep,
So it's, where are you going to side on this? But on the other side is the charging network. And by far, Tesla has the best charging network in the US. It's not everywhere,
yeah,
right? It's good, but at least California and some other place, it's incredible,
yeah.
right? The number of chargers that are there.
Easily
So
90% of the chargers I see are Teslas. So,
yeah, yeah, and yeah. Tesla chargers, at least California, or everywhere.
yeah,
No range anxiety whatsoever at all.
yeah,
But what's interesting about this is Chevy, GM,
yeah.
Ford, and I believe Hyundai have all partnered now with Tesla so that their cars can use the charging network. Rivian also is in there.
Yeah, that's obviously the thing to do. Then your
Well, yeah,
customers will get
but
better served.
yeah, I mean it's interesting because I would argue 10, 15 years ago, Tesla was their arch enemy because they wanted to sell um, um, internal combustion engine cars. That's what they've been doing for over 100 years.
Oh, sure, but this is the way it's always been. Like, remember the guys that want Linux on a desktop because they hate Windows? I mean, you can bang
Yeah.
your head against that wall until you realize whether you like it or not, Windows is the standard, and you have to make peace with that.
Yeah, but here Chevy has enough money, Volkswagen,
They
Ford has enough money to make their own charging network.
well, they have seem to be incompetent at succeeding, and they haven't done
Yeah.
it. They
And
talked
if
about it, but didn't actually do it.
right, and if you go back to Dieselgate, there was $1 billion that was set aside to Volkswagen, which is EV America, I believe,
Yeah.
um, was supposed to build out a charging network, and they have. But if you look, there are maybe, a few chargers here, 4, 8. I don't think there's a site with more than 10 chargers.
Well, this is the good side of Elon. He really did a good job on Tesla and a good job on
Yeah,
SpaceX. If he would just shut up with all the Nazi garbage,
right.
everybody would love him because Tesla is a great company and
Yeah.
SpaceX is a great company. And both of them walked in and made something that was 10 times better than the other stuff. And that's really impressive.
Yeah, Sam, I agree. And Elon's done an incredible job. You're right with SpaceX. So don't we all benefit from SpaceX?
We do. And by the way, if it was whatever Henry Ford started, he was also a Nazi, but the Ford was awesome. It was
Yeah.
so much better than the alternative. So it seems to be like a Shakespearean rule of history that if you have a person that has a great accomplishment, they also have a tragic flaw.
Yeah. 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 Kind of interesting
Yeah,
human trait, human personality that we can observe there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. If you wanted to like boycott um, t Musk entirely and cut him out of your life, this would be like trying to live without Google. I mean, the point is they're everywhere. You,
Yeah,
you,
yeah. Plus, if you don't want to support Elon, don't pay your taxes because he's getting money from the government,
and now he's going to get a lot more.
and now he's getting a lot more. Right,
I
right.
know.
Anyway, that kind of blends into my next story. But anyway, it's interesting. I was totally surprised that Chevy has already partnered with Elon, and Chevy cars can use Elon's supercharging network.
And by the way, I hear the Chevy Volt is pretty good. I don't know.
I have a Volt
Yeah.
and it's been recalled. Well, technically it hasn't been recalled, but there is a flaw in it. And I was part of a class action lawsuit. We sued GM and won
Mhm.
because of a defective component, pardon me, a part that was left off that could probably cost 10 cents. And kind of quickly, what happens is there's a voltage spike that occurs that damages a switch in there. And the circuit or the 10-cent part that they left out was a voltage suppressor, a voltage spike suppressor.
Yeah.
So every volt from a certain year, and then 12 million other cars that aren't volt that have the push button start, all have this defect. And the cost that the dealers are charging are anywhere from 500 to 35, $3,700 to fix.
Oh, but you get it for free because of the lawsuit, I hope.
Yeah, I got it for free because of the lawsuit, but GM and the dealers are trying to get the customer to pay.
Yeah.
And the first part that fails is a $1.75 switch that GM sells for $575. You can get the switch on Amazon for $1.75. GM sells it for over $500. The dealers don't replace the switch. They replace the shifter mechanism and they charge anywhere from 750 to $33,750
That
is
sounds
what
pretty,
we found.
that
Yeah,
sounds pretty
yeah.
awful.
But that's the auto industry. It
Yeah.
is a safety factor because if you have a Volt, which has a gas engine, the problem is you can't shut the car off. So let's say you're on battery, you pull into your garage, you close the garage door, you
Right.
can't turn off the car. The motor drivetrain battery dies, then the engine turns on. So that fills your garage, potentially your house with carbon monoxide,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
has already happened once and nobody has died from it, but there's the potential for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Anyway, so let's kind of go on. The other big news item is Stargate. Have you been following Stargate AI?
No, I just heard the announcement. I've heard a couple analyses of it. Uh, Go ahead. What do you got? That's the
Yeah,
$200
so
billion,
if
dollars, right?
let's kind of go back in history a little bit.
Yeah.
You have Foxconn. Do you remember Foxconn?
Yeah, they make the iPhones.
Yeah, they make iPhones and a lot of other products. So if we go back to 2017, Foxconn was to build a factory in where was it? Minneapolis, right?
Maybe, I
Or
forget.
in Minnesota, right? Um, I believe that's where it was.
Now, the
Uh,
original factories are all in China, right? So this would be the expanding to America.
yeah. So the story, as I recall, and I'm trying to fact check this. I've been doing this morning. Is that Trump was going to impose in 2017 a new tariff. So that means that iPhones and probably Samsung, pretty much all electronics any electronics that Foxconn creates that gets imported into the US would have an increase,
Right.
right? Okay. So what Foxconn did is they said, look, let's build a factory in the US. And they agreed to do it in Minnesota. That's the state I'm looking for.
Hmm.
So they agreed to do it in Minnesota. They said, we're going to invest all kinds of money. They're going to hire 5,000 people, jobs everywhere. So they convinced the government to use eminent domain, seize a number of houses. They cleared off the land and they started doing some building. And there is what's called the orb there. It kind of looks like the Epcot Center dome that was built there, but the jobs never occurred, took place. And as far as I know, Trump did not impose that tax or the tariff.
Yep.
So Foxconn kind of ruled. It turns out that the people didn't want Foxconn to be there. Turns out there were a lot, because of environmental concerns, they were going to make large TVs, is one of the products that they were going to make. And they need a lot of water to do that. A lot of pollution, pollutants would be there. And what nobody else factored in is that this is Lake Michigan. So you have Canada that has water rights, and they'd have to get buy-in on this. Anyway, from what I understand, Foxconn, the lot still is there. The orb is there. There are maybe 1,000 jobs, 1,200 jobs, but that's it. So that was the Foxconn deal. Now we come forward. Trump takes office. Again, we're hearing about tariffs, right?
Right.
So with AI, Elon jumps in and he calls it Stargate and Stargate AI. And if you remember, there was a TV show, Stargate.
Yeah, but I think the current Stargate, Elon is not part of it.
Well, he's connected with it.
Well, right, he's on
He's
Twitter
in there. He
complaining.
wants his own AI.
Right, but he has XAI. But I mean, what I heard is
Yeah.
the announcement yesterday, the day before, that there's going to be $500 billion, but it's OpenAI and Sam Altman, and Elon is not part of it. So he's complaining from the outside, saying they don't really have the money. They're lying about it.
Yeah. You're right. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
he's not together with Altman. Those guys are arch enemies, from what I've read.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, they are. In fact, they say they had some kind of scheme to distract Elon so they could have a big AI meeting with the White House people without Elon there, which, by the way, sounds pretty difficult because Elon is like joined to Trump at the hip lately. Somehow they kicked him out of the room to have a big AI meeting without him. And this is why he hated Joe Biden. Joe Biden had a big EV meeting without Elon. That's
Yeah,
why he
yeah,
turned into a Republican.
right.
He said, "How dare you exclude me from this thing which I own?" And Trump is doing the same thing, doing something behind Elon's back about AI. I don't know why.
Yeah. So the first thing that happened is, remember, Biden had signed, let's slow down, let's evaluate AI. That was his strategy,
Well, he
executive
said
order.
that, but the actual executive order didn't slow things down at all. It was just,
No, and it was quite vague, but Trump takes office. We can forget that. So that's been overturned.
yeah,
So Trump is claiming, just like he did with Foxconn, this is now for
yeah,
AI,
yeah,
it would create 100,000 American jobs almost immediately. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure what immediately means.
yeah. Well, that's
But so we have 100,000 jobs. There's supposed to be $100 billion that's going to be invested. This is with a Japanese company, SoftBank.
yeah. Well, they have a really bad history.
Yep. But, we'll see. Kind of, I would argue that SoftBank is kind of the replacement for Foxconn.
Yeah, well, it sounds like to some extent a scam, but I mean, the fact is, Microsoft has said they're going to put about $80 billion into AI next year, and so is, I think, other companies. So there is going to be a lot of investment. But this over the next 4 years, they say they're going to invest $500 billion in AI from various companies, and that's probably more or less true. That's
Yeah,
about what people
yeah.
are spending. The people are expecting to spend like $100 billion a year on AI for the next several years. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, so it's a lot of bowstring, but what is supposed to happen is 10 new data centers are to be built in the US
Yeah, so
for
apparently,
AI.
even Microsoft doesn't have enough data centers for OpenAI's ambitions, and they want to expand to Oracle. And Oracle is really trying to be noticed in the world of AI. So That's one take on this is it's Oracle jumping in the pool.
Yeah, and it's interesting is Benioff, Salesforce, they're jumping in the pool too, I believe.
I know they're big on AI. In fact, they claim that their AI agents are in fact the most productive, where you can actually like use this in business and it actually accomplishes something. All the rest are like early beta level prototypes that don't really do much yet.
Yeah, and wasn't Benioff Larry Ellison's protege?
I don't know, but he certainly made a pile of money. He's very successful, and he
Yeah,
also is carefully politically neutral and cooperating with Trump. He's not quite as much just jumping into being an open Nazi, but he's quite happy to cooperate with Trump. He moved to an old-fashioned businessman's position where I'll get along with anybody. That's what the recommendation would have been in the 60s. What a CEO should be is like politically neutral, so you don't offend anybody, so
right.
everybody will be your customer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is going to be interesting. I'm not saying this is exactly the same as the Foxconn deal, but there are some similarities. And what else is interesting is there are a lot more players now in this.
Yeah. And yep. It seems like it's kind of just putting a political public relations announcement on what they were going to do anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. A lot of bolstering, a lot of companies are trying to jump in
Yeah.
saying we've got the solution, when
Yeah.
in reality, nobody has the solution yet.
Yeah. Yeah. They each have their product and each product has some virtues and it's capitalism at its finest, right? They'll compete and
Yep,
somebody will win. Yeah. I
I'm in agreement with you, Sam.
I typically bet on Microsoft to win. Microsoft is pretty good at winning.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of this, I got a bunch of AI stories.
Okay.
So Apple now, Apple, I really had high hopes for Apple Intelligence that came out, I think, technically in November. It was supposed to be on your iPhone and somehow help you with your life and be valuable, but nobody really is benefiting from it. People say it's kind of useless. So now Apple is going to turn it on by default, whether you like it or not. You can turn it off, but the next Mac OS and iOS update, if your hardware can handle it, you'll have it. So I guess it's going to appear on my Mac M1 pretty soon. Um, and I guess I'll get to see for myself if it actually does anything. Everybody that uses it is pretty underwhelmed, and many people are just turning it off, saying it doesn't actually do anything useful. Um, and let's see, we already talked about Stargate. Um, oh yeah, so there's a tool. Somebody sold a product called a AI software engineer, and they charge $500 a month and it supposedly will engineer products. They claim it can autonomously find and fix bugs in code bases, and it's called Devon, and it can build and deploy apps end to end. So they marketed it, I think in the UK, as saying you can totally fire your engineers and have this AI product replace an engineer and develop software, an autonomous AI software engineer that can write, run, and test code. It's been out for a few months, and so somebody tested it and it is really bad. They gave it 20 jobs to do, and it only succeeded on 3 of them. So it's yet another AI fail story. Anyway, and
Yeah, but that's capitalism, right? We need to bolster our products.
well, it's good that they're trying, but the fact is, a few people have tried to like openly market, you can fire your staff and replace them with AI.
Yeah.
And as far as anybody can tell, that is not true at all yet. Uh, all the people that tried to actually completely replace humans with AI discover it's like a Tesla saying it can completely self-drive. The AI is not good enough to replace a human yet. It is good enough, perhaps, to assist a human under human
Yes.
supervision,
Yeah.
like Microsoft's Copilot products. But it's not a replacement for a human.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the story of Silicon Valley?
Well, I don't know.
You sell hype,
Well, yeah,
you sell
that's
promises.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
marketing. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, by the way, they said about this thing, Devon, tasks that seemed straightforward often took days rather than hours, with Devon getting stuck in technical dead ends or producing overly complex, unusable solutions. And even more concerning was Devon's tendency to press forward with tasks that weren't actually possible. So this sounds extremely believable. I mean, this is what happens when you don't know what you're doing. Like, I do capture the flag contests, and I really don't know how to solve a problem. This is what happens to me. I go down some blind alley that's not going to work, but I don't know it's not going to work, and I put great effort into trying to do it the wrong way. So I can understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yep.
get it.
Yep. And LinkedIn has been accused
Yeah.
of using private messages to train AI. I didn't even know there were private messages on LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn, but apparently they're taking the private messages and feeding it to train AI, and that is a sort of violation of privacy. So that's a bit of a scandal flying around now.
I see.
Anyway, that's all the AI. I got some other random tech stories. One that caught my attention, and boy, I was surprised my students knew all about this. So this guy went to the doctor and said, my hip hurts, it's hard to walk, my joints are swelling. And they looked at it and said, oh, I recognize this. This is fluoride poisoning. He was huffing uh, computer cleaner. You know, that compressed air
Yeah.
stuff? Apparently, people snort that to get high. For 3 years, he'd been sniffing a bunch of that to get high. And that stuff is apparently full of fluoride. And if you get a small amount of fluoride, like the amount of fluoride they add to water, that's good for your bones and makes them stronger. But if you get an overdose of fluorides, your bones swell and become brittle, and it's actually very bad for you. So I was unaware of this. My students say they knew about this, and there was like a TV special about it. People are sniffing this weird stuff to get high, and
Huh.
it's of course bad for you. So anyway, that was news to me. I said if you want to get high, you'd be a lot better off to drink or smoke pot. Now those have some bad side effects, but they're relatively minor, and people know how to handle them. Why would you consume some bizarre stuff like that?
Yeah. Good question. Good question.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a product called StratoShark. The guy that made Wireshark, Gerald Combs, made
Yes.
StratoShark, which is intended to analyze system calls. I was trying to get it working, and it seems like I wasn't able to get much project progress getting it working. But it's supposed to analyze system calls in a Wireshark-like interface. Um, it's in early stages, so when I tried installing it on a headless Debian server, it didn't work. Anyway, you have to somehow collect the system calls, and then you can analyze them in a Wireshark-like interface. So it sounds like it's friendlier than strace, and I was hoping I could run it on Windows and replace a really old product I use in my classes called API Monitor. It lets you see all the API calls in Windows so students can learn how Windows works. But so far, I haven't had much luck getting it to actually work. It seems like it may need to be developed a bit more.
Yeah, I just saw a YouTube video where pardon me, Chris Greer on YouTube gave an introduction to it. And Chris Greer is very well known for Wireshark, and he just introduced it. There's another guy on YouTube, David Bombal, who also is into Wireshark, and Chris and David Bombal were talking about it.
I certainly would like to have students be able to analyze and examine the Windows API calls the way you analyze packets. That seems like a good move forward because the Windows
Yeah.
API is super important for malware analysis and exploit development. And I'd like to have a friendly way to get students into it. So I'm interested, but so far it's a little hard to use. It has bugs.
Yeah, well, so did Ethereal, which became Wireshark over
Sure.
time. So early product, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good first effort.
Oh, sure.
Well, you're having some difficulty with it, but
No, but I applaud the goal, and I hope they improve it a bit more so it's easier to use, easier to collect the data.
yeah. So, on the plus side, Gerald Combs has a track history of doing a good job and
Yeah.
getting quite a following,
Yeah.
and developers also to support his vision. And I would bet that that's going to happen with this
Yeah.
open source tool, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely free.
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
Wireshark. I mean, Wireshark is the
Yeah.
standard for good reason. So
Yeah.
that part, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Wireshark put out of business several companies that were making competitive products, competing products.
Yeah, I never even heard of them. The only one I know is Microsoft's NetMom, which is greatly inferior. And
Yeah, they came up with Network Analyzer. There was Data General, Packet Trace, or Packet Sniffer. I used that. That was $100,000 product.
wow. Well,
There
Wireshark is
was
really good.
Wild Packets. I
Man.
don't know if Wild Packets still exists. There were a number of companies out there that were doing a for-profit product
Yeah.
that would do some other things. If you're really into the networking world, there's a reason to buy the commercial products.
Hmm. Well,
Anyway,
I've never used anything but Ethereal or Wireshark and Microsoft's Netmon, and
yeah,
Wireshark is fantastic.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you can't beat
no
the price.
question. Yep, yep.
Yep.
You have any more stories for
Oh
us?
yeah, there's a botnet called Gay Femboy, and this one, what they did was they infected it's been around since February of 2024, and its
Okay,
early versions were just Mirai packed with UPX. I thought this was interesting because they're standard malware techniques that are covered in my malware analysis class without much innovation, but the developers have been aggressively improving it. They modified the registration packets. They started modifying UPX to make polymorphic packing, so there's multiple versions of it. They've integrated end-day vulnerabilities and even discovered zero-day exploits to expand it. So they're still the botnet is growing and they're getting technically smarter quickly. So it's interesting to watch
okay,
the progression. They're one of these crime groups that's seriously innovating, you know. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and there's a South Korean VPN provider called IP and they were breached in a supply chain attack by the Plush Demon China-aligned hacking group. They compromised their installer product and put malware in the installer. So now,
okay,
and so they put in something called the slow stepper malware. And this malware, I noticed, one of the first things you do is to find out about the machine you infected, and it tells you if it's a virtual machine. So I often discuss in my classes, we analyze malware in a virtual machine. And in the world of Android malware, you can't do that. All the Android malware is smart enough to see if it's running in an emulator and not run. So you have to buy a real Android hardware if you want to analyze Android malware. And until recently, that has not been true of Windows malware. You can totally run it in a virtual machine, and most of the malware is too stupid to realize it's in a virtual machine. But this one apparently is smart enough to notice. And if they all start doing that, then it'll be more difficult to do malware analysis. You'll have to start analyzing it on real hardware or in a special virtual machine that more accurately imitates real hardware.
yeah. Sam, do you know how they do the detection?
It's really easy. I mean, for example, most virtual VMware machines, the name of the network adapter is like
Yeah, okay, okay.
virtualized. There are registry keys. You know, right now, the virtual machines don't try to hide very well at all. There's a bunch of things you can just look for that'll tell you this is VirtualBox, this is VMware. Now, there are some plugins that try to fix that. You could make a virtual machine that does a better imitation of a real machine.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that's what malware analysts are going to have to start using if this continues.
Yeah, so I years ago I was given a list of all the things that you need to change.
Yeah,
You're right. Network adapter, registry keys.
yeah.
I can't remember. There were some other things in there.
Another thing
It wasn't that difficult, but I'm wondering if they've circumvented that as well.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, of course, is that the hard disk and RAM are smaller because you
Yeah,
run it as virtual machines. So, I mean, if you, there's certain things that would be pretty hard to disguise, but right now it's painfully easy to tell that you're in a virtual machine.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you can have a virtual disk and you can make the disk size a couple terabytes. So
Yeah, you could make it. That's right. So, I mean, and I think if you put some effort into it, you could make a virtual machine that was hard to detect, but that
yeah,
hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, some people are doing it, but why go to the effort?
Well, if the malware gets a little smarter, we will
And
all have to go to that effort. Yeah.
that's why. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's continue. Let's
All
move
right.
on.
Well, this caught my attention. I'd like to
Yeah.
know. There's a USB 3.2 Generation 1 drive that comes with built-in endpoint protection. It's a security service that continuously monitors files on the USB drive for any signs of infection, in addition to a real-time antivirus feature which isolates and removes infected files when detected, and a heuristic function that analyzes potentially malicious programs by behavior, all built into the thumb drive. So I
Sam,
guess
that's incredible.
well, I wonder. I mean, I guess it must have a processor and RAM in the thumb drive. It's not even very big, but I mean, this is, of course, an issue. You get infected by infected files on a thumb drive, and these guys have somehow built antivirus into the thumb drive. So I wonder if it's effective. I wonder how you would update it. It's,
So
uh,
do you have any idea on the cost?
they said it's more expensive. They're relatively small and more expensive than other thumb drives, but not insanely so.
Yeah, but what's more expensive?
Well, let me bring it up here.
Do they have any pricing information?
They do. Uh, it's the USB 3.2 Gen 1, and there. Oh, it's only in like a foreign country, so it's by yen. I don't know what it means. Their modest capacity, 64 gig, 32 gig, and 16 gig, and each model will cost 10,000, 8,300, or 6,600 yen. They're not
I see.
available in
I see.
America, just in, I guess, South Korea or something. So, but I mean, certainly if it works, this would be popular because thumb drives are pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and I would argue it doesn't work.
Well, I'm having trouble understanding how it can work.
Right.
It sounds,
Right.
I don't understand how it could work. How could you actually run an antivirus engine on the thumb drive, and how could it possibly have up-to-date virus definitions? Yeah, that's why I wonder. Yeah. All right. And there's a survey that showed that only 18% of businesses that paid the ransom actually got their data back, were actually able to recover. That's worse than I thought. Because I've heard people in the business say everybody pays, you have to pay, but they say you really don't get all your data back. So that's an
Oh,
interesting.
all your data. Hmm.
Yeah. But this I've heard that if you do get your data, they give you like a decryptor, but it's buggy and doesn't work very well. And so you don't really get all the data back. The problem is, of course, I think once you encrypt your stuff, even if you restore the data, you have to sort of rebuild your network, right? I mean, they trash your domain controller and everything.
It depends how the encryption works. But yeah, you potentially you're correct. I would agree.
Yeah. I would think, if you encrypt all these files on a domain controller, even decrypting them probably really doesn't make it functional.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the
Right. Right.
problem.
Yeah.
Realistically, probably you're going to have to restore everything from backup, and you're fooling yourself to imagine that this would solve the problem.
Yeah. I wonder if one of the issues is rights, file directory file access rights.
That would be an issue. That's a problem. Yes, you'd
Yeah.
actually get all the permission structures. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. The permission
yeah,
structures.
and the last thing I got is you probably know about this more than me. There's a thing called a ground fault circuit interrupter requirement.
Yes.
Okay, apparently the home appliances have to detect a 5 milliamp leak and
Right.
then blow the fuse. Well, the National Fire Protection Agency proposes to require exactly the same thing for electric vehicle chargers. And the problem is electric vehicle chargers are outside and they run at 220 volts. So they really should be allowed to have 30 milliamps of leak before they turn off, but they want to make it 5. And they say the other regulation says that if you do trigger the circuit breaker button cannot be readily available. It has to be locked behind a door or underground or something. So when it does trigger, you won't be able to easily reset it. And so they say if this rule passes, it's going to make electric car chargers essentially impossible. They'll be so sensitive to a short, which is going to be common because of moisture or something, that they'll keep blowing the circuit breaker and turning themselves off, and you won't be able to easily turn it on. So it will just contribute to the situation I've heard where you go to get charged, but they're all like not working.
So this is kind of interesting. Are we talking public chargers or
Yeah,
home chargers?
public charge.
Public?
Yeah. And
Okay.
and what they're going to do is they want to there's a meeting in March and they're trying to propagate the rule for internal home appliances to outdoor chargers where it's not appropriate. And so they say there's not much you can do. It's just whether industry insiders at the meeting of the National Fire Protection Agency can convince them not to do this. So,
So, this is sort of crazy. Why is this a fire issue? But I'm not going there.
yeah.
Maybe they're the ones that regulate the
Well,
National Electric Code.
I think at home, a lot of home fires are started by electrical shorts. So that's the point. That's
Okay, so let's back up here, Sam.
uh,
This I do know quite a lot about.
yeah.
For a home charger, you have two options. One is you can get a hardwired charger,
Oh,
which means it's directly wired to the circuit
yeah, but I'm
breaker.
not talking about car chargers. These rules are for like toasters. So that when you have a
What?
short, the original rule for the ground fault interrupter is so that if there's a short, you won't get zapped by touching the toaster.
So the way a ground fault interrupter
Yeah.
works is for most outlets, you have three prongs. You have
Yeah.
what's referred to as a hot that has the
Right.
voltage. You've got a neutral and you have ground. And ground and neutral are at the same voltage potential.
Right.
So what happens is normally under ideal conditions, current flows from the hot, this is alternating current, but it flows from the hot to the neutral. If you come along and you touch it, you then have a different current path where some of that current can pass through you.
Right.
And what the GFCI does is it measures the incoming or outgoing current on the hot and the neutral. If it differs by 5 milliamps, 50 milliamps, then it triggers the GFCI.
Between the ground and the neutral, right? Not the hot and the neutral, but the ground and the neutral.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if it differs, in
Right.
other words, you're monitoring the hot and the neutral, they both should be in agreement with each other.
The ground and the neutral. The hot is, of course, different.
No, the hot and the neutral, the amount of current
Yeah.
should be identical.
Oh, right. So
What's
some of it's leaking out to the ground. I see. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's looking for leakage, either
Right.
you touching something or going through ground.
Okay. And so if it's like outside and it gets wet, then of course that creates some degree of current leaking.
Possibly. Yeah. 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 If there's moisture, you're right. So ideally what this is if you're let me think. If you're in a swimming pool
Yeah.
and the power cord falls into a pool while you're in there, the GFCI should trip immediately
Right.
and save your life, protect you.
That's the idea. So if it
That's
actually
the
starts
idea.
putting
Yeah.
voltage on the ground, right. Anyway, what they're saying is the rules for indoor appliances should not be the same as the rules for an outdoor charging station. And if they try to enforce that, it's going to make the outdoor charging stations impossible to maintain.
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't
I
know.
do know that there is an issue with outdoor with charging stations tripping GFCIs.
Yeah.
And what I can tell you is if it's hardwired, meaning there's no plug, then there's no requirement for a GFCI.
Well, that is exactly the issue. They want to enforce that requirement even when it's hardwired, and they say therefore it's not needed.
Wait, run that by me again.
That's what they say. They say the outdoor things are hardwired, so
Yes.
there's not a need for GFCI, but they are going to try to enforce it anyway. And if they do, it will make those devices fail more.
Okay. So the chargers, if we're talking EV chargers, they
Yeah.
all have GFCIs already built into the
Oh,
charger.
and what's the threshold? Is it 5 milliamps or 30 milliamps?
I don't know what the spec is.
Apparently, it's currently 30, and they want to make it 5. That's what I got out of this article.
Yeah, but so there are two different circuits. There's a circuit from the power source, which would be your fuse panel
Yeah.
or circuit breaker panel, to the charger, and then there's the charger to the car. And the charger to the car already has a GFCI in it.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. Yep. Well, I don't know enough to
So I don't know. We'll see. You
anyway.
kind of have me curious. I'm going to look into this.
Yeah, if you figure out what's going on, let me know because I sure don't understand it in great detail. Anyway, that's all the stories I had. Have you got any more?
Nope, that's it for me. We'll
All right.
rejoin on the 28th, which will be Tuesday.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Sounds good.
Okay.